The night of November 9, 1989 began like any other in Berlin. The city, cleaved in two by a concrete barrier, was a stark reminder of a world locked in a Cold War. Yet, by nightfall, an air of anticipation crackled through the streets of East Berlin. Earlier that day, Günter Schabowski, a high-ranking East German official, held a press conference. In a moment of confusion, Schabowski misspoke. He implied that East Germans could cross the Berlin Wall immediately. Thousands flocked to the wall's checkpoints. Border guards were soon overwhelmed. The Berlin Wall was breached. Jubilant crowds tore down sections of the wall. Strangers embraced, tears streaming down their faces. The Berlin Wall, after 28 years, had fallen. To understand the magnitude of that night, we must rewind to 1945. World War II had ended, leaving Europe in ruins. Germany, the defeated aggressor, was divided into 4 occupied zones, controlled by the victorious Allied powers: the United States, the United Kingdom, France, and the Soviet Union. Berlin, though located deep within the Soviet zone, was also partitioned. The city became a microcosm of the emerging Cold War, a geopolitical standoff between the capitalist West and the communist East. Tensions simmered as the two superpowers, with their vastly different ideologies, vied for dominance. In 1949, the divisions solidified. East Germany, under Soviet influence, became the German Democratic Republic, a socialist state. West Germany, supported by the Western Allies, became the Federal Republic of Germany, a capitalist democracy. Berlin, still divided, remained a flashpoint. Life in East Germany under Soviet rule was one of limited freedoms. The socialist state controlled most aspects of life, from the economy to the media. Citizens faced constant surveillance, and dissent was swiftly silenced. Many East Germans fled to the West, particularly through Berlin. On August 13, 1961, a shocking sight greeted Berliners. Trucks carried concrete slabs and barbed wire. Overnight, a barrier began to snake through the city, separating families and friends. This was the birth of the Berlin Wall, a physical manifestation of the Iron Curtain. The wall was heavily guarded, with watchtowers and a death strip to deter escape attempts. It became a chilling symbol of oppression, separating East from West, communism from capitalism. For nearly 3 decades, the Berlin Wall stood as a monument to division. However, by the mid-1980s, the winds of change were sweeping across Eastern Europe. In the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, a reformist leader, had come to power. Gorbachev's policies of glasnost, or openness, and perestroika, or restructuring, aimed to revitalize the ailing Soviet system. Gorbachev's reforms had a ripple effect throughout the Eastern Bloc. Countries like Poland and Hungary began to experience a loosening of Soviet control. Pro-democracy movements, emboldened by these changes, gathered momentum. In East Germany, however, the hardline communist government led by Erich Honecker clung to power, resistant to reform. Despite the government's efforts to maintain control, the calls for change in East Germany grew louder. Inspired by the events unfolding elsewhere in Eastern Europe, citizens began to organize protests, demanding greater freedoms and democratic reforms. Churches, once havens from the watchful eyes of the Stasi, the East German secret police, became centers of dissent. Section 5. The pressure builds. The pressure on the East German government intensified in the summer of 1989. Thousands of East Germans, seeking refuge and opportunity, fled to the west through Hungary, which had opened its border with Austria. The exodus, a humiliating blow to the East German government, further fueled public discontent. By October, the situation in East Germany was reaching a boiling point. Mass demonstrations calling for Honecker's resignation and the dismantling of the Berlin Wall erupted in cities across the country. The government, facing its greatest crisis, responded with a mix of repression and half-hearted concessions. On October 18, 1989, Erich Honecker, bowing to pressure from within his own party, resigned. He was replaced by Egon Krenz, a younger, supposedly more reform-minded communist. However, the change in leadership did little to quell the unrest. The protests continued, fueled by a palpable sense that the old order was crumbling. Section 6. A misinterpreted announcement. In an attempt to appease the growing unrest, the East German government announced plans to ease travel restrictions for its citizens. Günter Schabowski, the party boss of East Berlin, was tasked with delivering the news at a press conference on November 9, 1989. The announcement, however, was poorly worded and open to interpretation. When pressed by journalists about when the new regulations would come into effect, Schabowski, seemingly caught off guard, consulted a note. "As far as I know, it takes effect immediately without delay," he mumbled, unsure himself of the details. The news, broadcast live on television, sent shockwaves through East Germany. The ambiguity of Schabowski's statement, whether intentional or a genuine mistake, proved to be a pivotal moment in history. Millions of East Germans glued to their television screens interpreted his words as confirmation that the Berlin Wall was open. They were free to cross. Section 7. The Wall crumbles. Fueled by a mix of hope and disbelief, thousands of East Berliners flocked to the wall's checkpoints. Border guards, caught off guard by the sudden influx and lacking clear instructions, were overwhelmed. Some tried to adhere to the old rules, stamping passports with a special exit visa that effectively rendered East Germans stateless. However, the pressure from the crowds, eager to cross and reunite with loved ones, became too great. The guards, sensing the historic shift and fearing for their own safety, relented. The first tentative crossing soon became a torrent of humanity. The Berlin Wall, once an impenetrable barrier, was breached. News of the wall's opening spread like wildfire. East and West Berliners converged on the barrier, their cheers echoing through the night. People danced on top of the wall, spray-painted messages of freedom on its surface, and chipped away at its concrete with hammers and chisels. Section 8. Jubilation and Uncertainty. The scenes of jubilation at the Berlin Wall were broadcast around the world, capturing the imagination of millions. Strangers embraced, tears of joy streaming down their faces. Champagne bottles popped, fireworks lit up the sky, and impromptu street parties erupted. The fall of the Berlin Wall, once unthinkable, had become a reality. Yet, amidst the euphoria, there was also a sense of uncertainty. The future of Germany, divided for so long, was unclear. What would become of East Germany? Would the two German states reunite? And what about the Soviet Union, the superpower that had exerted such control over Eastern Europe for decades? The events of November 9, 1989 had set in motion a chain reaction that would reshape the geopolitical landscape of Europe and the world. The fall of the Berlin Wall marked not only the end of the Cold War but also the beginning of a new era. Section 9. A symbol of freedom. The Berlin Wall, once a symbol of oppression and division, had become a potent symbol of freedom and unity. Its fall demonstrated the power of peaceful protest, the yearning for liberty, and the fragility of walls, both physical and ideological. The events of 1989 served as a stark reminder that even the most seemingly insurmountable barriers can crumble when confronted with the collective will of the people. The legacy of the Berlin Wall continues to resonate today. It stands as a testament to the human spirit's enduring desire for freedom and the importance of tearing down walls, both literal and figurative. The fall of the wall reminds us that change is possible, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds. It is a story of hope, of courage, and of the enduring belief in a better tomorrow. It is a story that continues to inspire and challenge us to this day. Section 10. The Legacy of the Wall. The fall of the Berlin Wall had a profound impact on Germany, Europe, and the world. It paved the way for German reunification, which formally took place on October 3, 1990. The collapse of the Eastern Bloc followed, leading to the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991. The events of 1989 marked the end of the Cold War, a period of geopolitical tension that had cast a long shadow over the world for decades. The fall of the Berlin Wall ushered in a new era characterized by the spread of democracy and the hope for a more peaceful and interconnected world. However, the legacy of the Berlin Wall is not without its complexities. The reunification of Germany presented both challenges and opportunities. The economic disparities between East and West Germany took years to address, and the psychological scars of division lingered. Section 11. What walls remain? The fall of the Berlin Wall serves as a powerful reminder that walls, both physical and metaphorical, can be overcome. It challenges us to confront the barriers that divide us, whether they be based on ideology, nationality, religion, or any other form of difference. As we reflect on the 35th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall, it is worth asking ourselves, what walls remain standing in our world today? What barriers prevent us from building a more just, equitable, and peaceful future? The story of the Berlin Wall is a story of hope, but it is also a story of caution. It reminds us that freedom is precious and must be constantly defended. It urges us to never take our freedoms for granted and to remain vigilant against all forms of oppression and division.